Another Sunday. My name's Bill Voice. This is UK GK TV. This is Dave. This is Mike. So we're here today to basically, hopefully, break a curse because we've done this interview and this talk now. This is our third go. All sorts of gremlins in the works, mate. There's plenty of gremlins in the workshop, but these are real gremlins. So today we're hopefully going to be talking about 1950s, early 60s sci-fi because it's a really significant sort of period in cinematic history that does reflect a lot of the models that go on around us, doesn't it? Yeah.
It really does, yeah.
So
what have we got today then? We've got Mike in today. Mike's our local expert, for want of a better word. Yeah. He loves his sci-fi. He's always going on about it. He's done a little bit of bits and pieces for us. We're going to go through a bit of the history like we did with the Jack Pierce. And then we're going to talk about the models that were inspired by it. Before we go any further, guys, these are our opinions. We do get things wrong occasionally, so if you want to correct us, feel free to. It's just a bit of fun. So,
Well, I get things wrong all the time, mate. So,
so the wife says.
So I was going to say, if you have anything to put me right on, if you contact the wife, she will come and she'll tell me where I went wrong. Yeah. And she'll do a much better job than you because I'm scared of not scared of much else, really. So that's kind of cleared the air with that one. So we're going to start with... my little bold statement here. You please feel free to get in the comments and disagree with me. I think the 1950s is the iconic period of science fiction. It's a little bit like the late 1930s with the Universal monsters. It's the basis of all horror.
And this is sci-fi.
Yeah, and this is the basis of all sci-fi. The really good sci-fi tropes were come up with in the 1950s. Right. I would say that was.
And a lot of the vision. The way you imagine science fiction
to
be UFOs and everything all comes from that period.
Even right up to things like Star Trek and Star Wars they owe a massive debt to 1950s sci-fi.
I mean, what happened was basically America recovered so fast from the war, we didn't.
Yeah.
And you've got teenagers. So you've suddenly got a massive audience, and so there are literally hundreds of films made all in America between 50 and 60.
Yeah, because they had to make movies in like a wholesale way, really, didn't they? Because there were so many people wanting entertainment. They had the outdoor drive-in movie theatres as well, which is a great American cult thing. A theatre that could just be a field with a screen.
I don't understand how that worked. Surely if you're in the next field, you could watch the film.
Have you ever seen the... Well, they did. They used to go behind the screen to watch
the film.
Have you ever seen how the speakers worked? I mean,
No, why would
all these dozens of cables.
Yeah. They used to hook them over the side of your car door.
That's not health and safety by any chance,
not anyway. No, not at all. But
imagine tripping over them.
That was modern technology at the time, wasn't it?
It was.
So the speakers, let me get this right. The speakers, you could hear if you were walking past, you could hear the sound.
Yeah,
but you couldn't. You could only hear it if you'd rented the speaker to go in your ar.
Yeah, but if you're walking past, surely you would hear it.
You would. I mean,
they used to fence them off. They were like
a basketball field.
Yeah, exactly.
So you drive in, pay your money. There'd be a huge, great big screen that everyone could see for a mile.
They'd hook you up with a speaker unit from the posts. There's posts with all the speaker units on. They hook you up with one over your car door.
Away you go.
And away you go.
It was I mean, what a shame we could never do that.
It's great. We can't do it in the UK because of lack of weather, really, or the too much weather, as we well know. So we're going to start off with the day the Earth stood still, which is.
I mean, isn't it strange that you start in... This is the poster. It just it says everything about the period, doesn't it? And you start off with one of the most important and iconic films of the whole period. I mean, I think everybody knows.
I think, if I just go back to the poster.
Go on, poster first.
So, the poster this is in the great tradition of the poster / the box art, bearing very little resemblance to what goes on in the actual film. The robot Gort does not kidnap a beautiful redhead and run off with it while shooting a soldier with its laser eyes. It does all those things in a kind of a way, but not in that way. Anyway,
so there's your robot. I mean, incredibly, it looks like a robot, but this in fact is the alien himself. So this is Klaatu,
played by Michael Rennie.
And there is
God.
The iconic robot Gort. Fantastic looking, and the ship was amazing.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of the original flying saucer, but it's constructed full size, and it had this fantastic way of opening that it looks like a single shell. And then the section of the saucer slides forward, so a big wedge of the metal comes out, It forms a staircase.
It looked almost like liquid. I mean,
it
the
did.
way it came out was
right.
superb. It was so far ahead of its time.
It reminds you slightly of the Terminator effects in Terminator 2, with the liquid
T-800.
robot. T-800.
No, T-1000.
Yeah.
T-1000.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing about the film is it set the bar because a lot of the films, great fun, but had nothing to say. Whereas the best tend to have something to say. And this really did have something to say.
It's basically the alien comes to warn us that we're destroying our own world, and if we're going to go out to space, we're going to come up against a bit of trouble because people aren't going to be happy with the way that we behave, and that results in him getting shot.
Yeah, and I mean, if anything, it's a big warning about nuclear war and the possibilities that we could blow ourselves up because these aliens realise that we can do that, and then he gets shot. So the first thing he realises that
spoiler alert,
is that the humans are dangerous. But then he meets somebody, and he kind of begins to realise that humans might have a capacity for something.
Yeah, it's about it's very American sort of thing, but it's about the purity of the individual, isn't it? It's about the individual becoming more than the society in which they live.
In terms of kits, Dave, I think
there was a fantastic. The ultimate version of these was about 20-30 years ago by a company called Billiken. They did an actual two-piece kit, Gort and Klaatu. No longer available, I'm afraid. I think it's all gone now. We can get these on the secondary market.
Gort's iconic and great looking, but I mean, for me, I'd like a really good Klaatu because
with
the likeness was fantastic.
Yeah.
The likeness of him was fantastic. It was superb. If you ever see it on eBay, it's worth getting. At the time, it was kind of lost on me a little bit because it was a guy in a silvery jumpsuit and then this completely bland robot, but once you watch the film and get into it, you realise that it's as accurate as it's ever going to
be. It has that 1950s sort of almost like post-deco purity to everything, doesn't it? And rather than overdoing it like with that 1980s sort of like junk sensibility, like they did in things like to an extent Star Wars, they kept it.
Oh, thank you.
They kept it smooth and sort of like seamless because that's how that sort of technology would actually be.
And in terms of the film, there's nothing sort of overblown or ridiculous about it.
There's it's subtle, isn't it? It's subtle.
Now the next one is. Well, these are all my favourites.
I mean, no, but this bears looking at. This is amazing.
It's Frankensteinish, isn't
it? It is Frankensteinish.
It is.
The concept about it is more than being an animal, he's kind of a plant, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He's a plant.
He's a plant. That's why they had difficulty killing him, and that is it came from outer space.
The thing from another world.
Sorry, the thing from another world. The thing from another world.
Which is
the thing.
It is the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it's exactly the same plot. Yeah. The weird thing is that the director's Howard Hawks, who did loads of westerns. I mean, that was what he was known for.
Well, adventure movies and film noir, because he was a serious director, wasn't he? And then I think the film bears out the fact that there's a certain skill in the director. It's a bit like James Whale's Frankenstein. It has all the artistic and creative nature that a good director brings to a film.
And the claustrophobia that the remake, the first version, is in the first film.
Right.
They're encased in this ice surrounded building.
In support of the second movie, in the remake, The Thing, there's not many films that are remakes that stand the test of time. They both stood the test of time.
That one does.
And that does. In fact, the second one kind of adds a more modern sensibility to it. But the nature of this original movie, the black and white original, is there is a claustrophobia there that you really capture the sort of like the reactions between the characters in the base and the fact that they've got nowhere to go, and it's a really good way of isolating a group of people.
It is, and beautifully filmed, beautifully acted. Actually, some great acting in it. And it set the bar for that kind of film. As far as I know,
there are models. There's the figures. Years ago, our guys over the pond will enlighten us. Put it in the comments below. I have seen full figures. I have had them and sold full figures of the character at memorabilia many moons ago. So there were kits out. Not so many now, but there are kits out of that. Yeah.
Now the next one is like. Again, a fantastic film. I'm sure you're going to recognise this immediately. War of the Worlds. Great film. Virtually nothing to do with the fantastic book. I mean, it's just got little bits of
nod
to the books.
I think the original War of the Worlds movie, George Pal, wasn't it? George Pal.
Yes, it was, yeah.
It does have a very good flavour, but it is very Americanised. But I personally feel I've got a really soft spot for that movie because even though it doesn't, in the same sense, look at the book, because the original H.G. Wells book is very much about the people. And the way that they respond to the crisis.
Yeah,
the rout of civilization. Here, it's the triumph of civilization over the invader, isn't it? And once again, it's a kind of a parallel between the Cold War aspects of the nuclear age, isn't it? And that kind of thing.
You know, they did such a good job in terms of the actual alien itself.
Yeah.
In terms of the actual
spaceship,
invasion, the spaceship. Very, very well done.
I think what I like about it as well, George Pal was a stickler for his special effects. When George Pal did special effects, whether it was on the Time Machine or whether it was on War of the Worlds, he spent every penny he could on the budget, and it really shows, doesn't it?
It really shows. Talent as well,
and he found some real talent. Yeah.
There just seems to be an absolute abundance of models of the craft.
He was a Satanist, bro.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So. The curse has happened again. The other recording device that we were using is just flaked out for some reason. That it was all sorted and it isn't. So please bear with us. We're going back in and trying to do the second thing. We were talking about great Victorian Satanists, and we were talking about Aleister Crowley about 20 minutes before we started, and we go, oh, Aleister Crowley, whoa, and all the rest of it, and so. Let's just hope that this works. Right, so we were up to War of the Worlds and we're about to talk about the plethora of kits. So we're going to leave this in as evidence of maybe
the curse. They're blaming me, by the way.
They're blaming Mike because it never works.
It's got to be Mike. It's got to be Mike. It's got to be Mike, hasn't it? Mike's Satan in disguise, isn't he? He is Satan. Yes. What I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by the powers of darkness were that the film itself, War of the Worlds, it doesn't seem to be an awful lot of kits of the actual alien. It's more of the craft. Why is that, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think with the alien, the original alien in the original movie, it was beautifully, if you want to just pick it up again, you can see that the top half of it was beautifully done. That three-way eye, because the Martians have everything around three, so they got 3 fingers, 3 eyes, like 3 lobes to their body, and all the rest of it. And I think George Pal really captured that. But you only see the top half of the alien, don't you? And you also see this like snaking sort of arm. Now, when Steven Spielberg remade the movie, I think he did it with the original, the Tom Cruise movie. And this was I think a really lovely little kit that came out at the time, and it was quite available, wasn't it? It was quite an available kit. And this is the monster. Once again, it's based around a 3. It's got 3 legs, hasn't it? It's got a third leg at the back and stuff like that, and these little arms. Also looks a bit like the Independence Day alien as far as
it does, yeah.
I think there may be supposed to be some sort of relationship with those two things.
I mean, I think the thing about it is that actually a lot of people slag off the second film, the Tom Cruise one.
Yeah,
but actually, it's more accurate than the first one.
Because in the Tom Cruise movie, he's in the cellar, isn't he?
That's right.
And he's trapped with that kind of
the lunatic
lunatic priest, which is a very good part of the book. And if you haven't read the book, I'd recommend you read H.G. Wells, full stop, everything you can get your hands on. But the Time Machine and the War of the Worlds, they're 2 books you've got to read. They're very short, aren't they? They're relatively short.
The War of the Worlds is quite long, actually.
Do you think so?
Yeah, the Time Machine's pretty short. Yeah.
I'm thinking of something like Things to Come or something like that, which is like a massive volume.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not Dickens. It's not Dickens.
It's great fun.
It's great fun. Great fun. Yeah.
Right, so the next one of my favourite films again, they all are, and this is important for one reason really. This is The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. This is a copy of the original poster.
It's got you all over this, hasn't
it? And you know, it's got Bill all over it because of this tiny little name down here, which is Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, of course, the great Ray Harryhausen, master of animation, and obviously it's a dinosaur brought back to life. And it's attracted by a foghorn, isn't it? Isn't it from a Ray Bradbury story?
It's Ray Bradbury the foghorn.
But if you think about it, it's a kind of almost like a Godzilla. It's kind of Godzilla because the beast comes from the sea. It's a dinosaur. It tramples on everything. Yeah. It's kind of a sort of an American version of Godzilla.
Well, but it's 1953, so it's actually just before.
So it predates Godzilla.
Yeah. So in fact, it's like a prototype basically.
Right.
And what's astonishing about it really is Harryhausen, isn't it?
I mean,
the Beast is great.
For the time, people were astounded at the way that the Beast moved about. I mean, it really was beautifully animated, and
there's the Beast itself from the film.
Is it a Reredosaurus? Is that what it's called? It's called a Reredosaurus. It's made up. It's made up. It's kind of
it's not a real dinosaur.
It's not a real dinosaur. It's not a real dinosaur, but it makes a fantastic kit, especially a vinyl one.
You've got that,
and I've got that one.
And it's a thoroughly exciting film. It's really well done. So worth watching.
It's well worth watching for the kind of tropes that you come along in it, like the soldiers firing at it and it comes down and it bites them. If you go to like Jurassic Park and you remember the account on a toilet.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know, all of those things that that people recycle, they come from these movies. So it's well worth a watch. And some of these 50s movies are very, very clunky, but the ones that you've mentioned so far actually still stand up, don't they?
I think they do.
I think they do. I
mean, the next one is Them, 1954, which is the big ant things in the desert. Yeah. It's important because it starts a trope, which is basically things being mutated by atomic testing.
Atomic testing makes everything small grow really, really big and aggressive. So you've got tarantula, Attack of the Giant Gila Monster, all of those things. There's Them, which is about ants. There's the Deadly Mantis, the Black Scorpion.
Oh yes, Black Scorpion.
You know, a lot of these films do include very early animatronics, which is them, full-size ants, and they look brilliant even today. You've got a lot of animation, like with the Black Scorpion, that's animated, the 3D animation. You've got your magnified tarantula in Tarantula,
good
which
film.
Is still very animated, which has got Clint Eastwood in it as a jet fighter pilot. I think it's his first or second movie ever made.
Yeah.
So Clint Eastwood,
towards the end of the film.
Towards the end of the movie.
The thing with them that got me is it succeeds because they build it up so well. I mean, you don't tend to see the monster that much, and what you do is you hear the sound, which is really well done. This sort of
chittering,
yes,
a sort of insectoid chittering in the background, and then these ants appear suddenly, and it's quite a thrill. I think.
It is, and I love the setting. You know, they're filming in the desert. I think they're filming in Nevada.
That's right, yeah.
And
very traditional.
You know, you've got the right atmosphere. It works well. It's a good film. Short and sweet and great fun.
Yeah, the whole thing's very dusty, and it is. It hasn't got. It avoids that kind of too shiny feel that some films have. It's definitely a gritty,
polished,
gritty movie.
Absolutely.
It's a gritty movie.
I mean, again, I don't know whether people would enjoy doing an ant model, but there are plenty of opportunities.
What was that one you
AMT, wasn't it? AMT used to do the giant insects, which you know because you bought one off me.
Yeah.
They did a giant mantis, a giant wasp, a giant scorpion, a giant tarantula, but they didn't do a giant ant.
And I think it's a difficult one to do, but I mean, you can imagine it in a diorama with the giant ant and the car, for instance, when it attacks
a 1950s police car, like a Buick or something. That would be a great diorama,
Now, the next one, really, we tend to sort of ignore anything that's Disney.
Yeah.
Because it's Disney. But, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a major film in 1954. It cost $9 million, which by today's standards is a mega budget. I mean, you're talking the equivalent of something like 200 million. Filmed in the Bahamas, and it sticks pretty closely to Jules Verne's original book.
Wasn't it one of the original widescreen movies or something?
It was. In fact,
that's right.
Yeah, in fact, it's the first CinemaScope. That's right.
First CinemaScope movie where they actually had to make changes to the cinemas to actually show it. I mean, some of them just had a screen that rode up a bit, and you had like a letterbox, didn't you?
Yeah.
But a lot of the movie theatres, because this was the future, this was the equivalent of say 3D that failed a couple of years back. But they actually the notion of a wide screen away from that ordinary format, and because I mean, obviously TVs. You might not know this, but a lot of films that you see on TV are either shrunk or stretched,
or panned and scanned
to fit on a TV screen. So when you see a TV version of a movie, you don't necessarily see the glory of it, do you? Because it's cropped to go into a TV screen.
And if you've ever seen CinemaScope on a cinema, which I have once, it's wonderful to watch. Yeah. I mean, because it's just such a widescreen vista. It's
if you went into a cinema back in the 60s, the curtains would open and there would be blanking plates on the screen moving to fit the format of the actual screen itself.
Wonderful.
So if you were lucky and you had a full size almost, and some of them had a gentle curve in it, so you were actually almost as though you were sitting in the movie itself. That was the idea of CinemaScope.
Good, great film, great cast. James Mason, Kirk Douglas, Peter Lorre, great cast. and the Nautilus, beautifully designed.
It's been done loads of times.
Fantastic kits.
And
There's
I
one
know
of it with it's an octopus, is it, or something?
it's a giant squid.
Right.
But for me, you know, I don't want to do the Nautilus on its own. I would like a kit with the Nautilus there and the squid coming out.
I think I've seen a small single-piece resin version of that.
Yeah.
But all the Nautiluses I've seen have been like basically engineering kits when you've got hundreds of parts, brass etched, strips of wood.
Yeah.
There's a stunning one on YouTube and presumably on some Facebook where somebody's built one that must be 5 feet across and all lit up and so on. It's beautiful. But you know, for me, I want a bit more than that.
Well, it's the first appearance of Captain Nemo, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And later on, when Mysterious Island came along, Nemo appears again in Mysterious Island. That's what's his name?
It was James Mason in the original.
James Mason in the original.
But I can't remember the second ones.
Herbert Lom.
That's right. Yeah.
Herbert Lom
who's pretty much insane by that point.
Yeah. But and then there's a lot of Jules Verne's films that came out at the time. There's Master of the World with Vincent Price.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
About a great big flying machine, which looks suspiciously like an aerial Nautilus from the Disney movie.
It does.
But yeah, it's some great films.
And Jules Verne's been loads of things filmed.
Yeah.
This is before Disney went woke, obviously.
Yeah, it was before Disney went woke.
It's a good film. It's thoroughly entertaining.
You
know, great acting, great special effects for the time. The next one, I'll pass over to Bill. I thought we got to mention Godzilla. So the first Godzilla in terms of a Japan USA version, so a dubbed version, and with some American input as well, apparently, is 1954.
Well, Godzilla, obviously, radioactive mutated dinosaur, is resurrected by the nuclear bomb, I assume, in Japan. It's never mentioned explicitly, but you can read that post-war kind of post-nuclear feel to
absolutely.
It gets loose in Japan. In Japan, Godzilla is actually a villain in the original movie. And he actually destroys Tokyo, and they spent the rest of the film trying to kill him. It became so popular that the Americans bought up the rights, and they intercut scenes with American actors. So the Godzilla that most of us see isn't the original Japanese one; it's like an American version of it, and that spawned loads of movies. And the one I saw as a kid at the cinema, which was already old then, was King Kong versus Godzilla. And the next one I saw was in Birmingham at the Odeon, and it was called Mecha Godzilla, where Godzilla fights a great big mechanical version of himself.
So Bill's been corrupted from a very early age.
From a very early age, I've been to watch dinosaurs, anything with dinosaurs. But I will give you a kind of recommendation, and feel free to disagree with me. I saw a Godzilla movie the other day, and Godzilla -1, and it was a movie about people.
Not the dinosaur.
Not the dinosaur.
That's what I've been trying to explain today.
It's just absolutely brilliant movie. I watched it. It was like watching some sort of Kurosawa meets Kaiju.
All right.
It's not.
It's
not
Godzilla.
Well, I'm not a
It's
huge
not
Godzilla
Godzilla,
fan.
is it?
It's not a Godzilla movie in a sense, but it actually touched me, and at the end of it all, and
I
shed a tear.
I will watch it because I'm
not
not a huge Godzilla fan.
I watched it because everybody recommended it. It's the best Godzilla film ever made, and I watched it and I thought, it's a great film, but it's not Godzilla because the Godzilla bits were
really important.
But
the effects are just astounding.
Well, you're a dinosaur guy, so I'm going to ask you a question now.
Go on then.
He knows what we're talking about here.
Go on.
How come when it's swimming through this... I'm going to spoil this now.
Go on.
When it's swimming, it doesn't make any waves.
Well, I don't know. But okay, here we go. Right, this is me trying to disprove the flat Earth theory here. But if you think about it, whales don't make that many waves.
Okay. And when they try to kill it...
It's a sleep design.
Oh, right, okay.
Just,
I just thought it looked great. Yeah. I thought the film was great, but it wasn't a Godzilla film. But I loved it, like you. I thought it was a great film.
I just thought it was a great movie, and it was nice to see.
He didn't smash the town up, did he?
Well, he did. There's that great scene where he lifts up the railway train and everybody's falling out of it and stuff. And that was real King Kong stuff.
Yeah, but not as Godzilla should.
He does. He has that kind of nuclear spill out.
Right, okay.
I'm
going to be the referee here.
Anyway, no.
So, I mean, we don't need to talk about
We're both agreed that it's a good movie, though.
There are dozens and dozens of models.
Yeah.
Oh, there's loads of
Godzillas.
And some of them excellent.
My favourite, of course, is the original Aurora.
There's a Billiken.
There's a Billiken one, but the original Aurora one came out with King Kong, didn't it? They brought King Kong, and it was part of the Monsters in the movies.
Yeah,
and it's a very leggy kind of blown up. It looks like a balloon sculpture.
Do you know what one of my all-time Grail kits was? Just going off keel here, was the 4 foot long Godzilla Coyote one. That was one I wanted. That
is that vinyl?
Vinyl. You can't get it for love nor money.
Well, it's a big kit. It's a shelf killer, isn't it?
It was 4 foot long, and it was a must-have. I only ever seen it once, and I thought I've got to have one like a Coyote Gremlin. Never got one. Anyway.
Anyway, the next one is This Island Earth. Where are we now? 1955, and it introduced this character. Dave, do you want to chime in?
There we go, guys. This is now available for ourselves.
Oh, yeah,
this is the first cast, or one of the first castings. And there we go. How nice is that?
That's the Metaluna mutant.
Yeah, mutant at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Now, you might all say, well, where's the head? It just come with a head and all the monsters on.
Yeah.
But like I said,
this is
the
Millicent Patrick.
Millicent Patrick tribute. But it's now available, guys. Solid resin.
Lovely kit.
She's there with the easel. She's got the
she's got a drawing board on her hand like that. And it's a lovely piece of kit. And she's a very elegant lady in this wonderful 1950s cocktail dress, drawing away there. There you go. It's an basically spot on kit. That.
She's there doing this thing. It's got all the monsters on there.
Yeah, the beauty of this kit is if you've got limited shelf space, first of all, it's tall and slender, and secondly, the monsters you get with it, like the Metaluna mutants, there's the Jacqueline Hyde, there's the creature from the Black Lagoon. She did the makeup designs for all of these things. There's your Jacqueline Hyde, isn't it? Yeah, and you've got several monsters and a fantastic sculpt, which is very elegant. And I've seen a version of it painted up, and it's absolutely stunning.
That's wonderful.
I think the Mole Man, is it?
Yeah,
the
Mole Man. You get probably half a dozen characters on one piece.
The Metaluna mutant itself had these wonderful sort of claw hands.
Yeah.
And there have been a few novels that I must say I wouldn't mind a sort of bust in resin with the claw, not necessarily with the feet.
When I first started in the hobby, there was one in vinyl, I'm pretty sure, and I think Billiken have done one again.
Yeah, there was an injection moulded version of it, and it was done to look like an Aurora kit recently, and I think it was in pink plastic, pinky sort of plastic. There was a lot of them issued. I think there was a few ownership rights going on there.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the things with this. It's still a very, very saleable product.
I
think if you're going to mass produce a kit like this, unless you get the rights exactly right, there's too many people trying to stop it.
I don't know why people don't. In the film, there's the character Exeter, who's the alien who communicates with the humans, and they've got this huge sort of domed head.
Yeah,
and it would make a nice pairing, to have both of them in the same scene.
Yeah, if you remember the Tefal adverts from the 1980s, you got these Tefal guys with big heads and white hair, and basically they're based on the movie, the people in this movie, and it's a rescue plot, isn't it? They've come to Earth to get some scientists to come and rescue them from their own destruction. They have a thing called the Interrossiter, which is like an interactive TV set, which very much is like...
Is he related to Leonard Rossiter?
He's related to the cat. What was the cat called? Vienna.
Sorry.
A bit of a British banter there. Yeah. The Interrossiter is a bit like Teams. It's like Microsoft Teams. It runs off the internet. It's amazing how sci-fi, and this is the thing that we've not really touched on. No. Sci-fi reflects
real life.
Future. In fact, it wasn't for science fiction authors, engineers and designers would probably not do as well as they do, because when they see something like the flick up communicator on Star Trek, they think, isn't that a good idea? And then they go make it. Yeah. So to support science fiction, and it's often seen as one of the lesser literary genres, isn't it? Yeah. It's seen as a kind of a sort of a distant cousin of a proper novel, but without science fiction, without speculative fiction, right back to people like William Morris and people like that, and and all those Victorian authors, they speculated about what the future could be, and without that philosophical speculation, other people's imaginations maybe aren't strong enough to power the future.
It's funny because we finished talking about War of the Worlds, but what have you got there? You've got a species wiped out by a biological freak, a cold. Yeah, and that is, it reflects a theme that carries on right till today: biological warfare.
Yeah, COVID.
Anyway, This Island Earth, great special effects, great fun, lovely colours, wonderful designs, really worth watching. The next one, well, I mean, for me, you know, if you've not seen this film, for me, if people ask me my top 10 films of any genre, then Forbidden Planet is in there. Wonderful film, fantastic vision, massive inspiration on Star Trek.
It is Star Trek before
and
Star Trek.
Wars.
Yeah.
You know, the thing, the glider,
the land speeder.
The land speeder.
The land speeder.
Totally taken from Forbidden Planet.
And to an extent, C-3PO is kind of Robbie the Robot, isn't he?
Very, very famous Robbie the Robot. I mean, pity the poor guy who had to get inside that.
Because that's a diving suit, if ever it was.
It's incredible.
I guess it's out of copyright now.
Yes, it would be.
Because millions of shots go for
I mean, the thing that people forget is that the actual creature, which you only see towards the end,
the monster from the id,
and it's just wonderfully done. They actually brought in a Disney designer to do it, and it's actually a very effective monster even today.
The monster's kind of invisible but extremely powerful, and you only see it when you shoot it with a laser gun or it walks into an electric fence. It then reveals itself, and it's almost like somewhere between a lion and a gonk, and the kind of the monster almost like it's something out of the Labyrinth, isn't it?
Yeah, it always reminds me a little bit, strangely enough, of the Muppets animal.
It looks, it looks like animals from the Muppets, because it's a head on legs, isn't it? Essentially,
it's really kind of chilling. And I mean, I'm afraid we're being dead pretentious here, but as an English teacher, it is just Shakespeare. It is just the Tempest. All the characters are based on the same story.
If you go and watch Forbidden Planet the musical, in fact, there's more references to the Tempest in that than there is in the actual movie, The Forbidden Planet. But
return to the Forbidden Planet. If you've never seen the musical, I've seen it 5 times.
I would argue, if you watch this film to this very day, you cannot in any way improve it.
No.
There's no improvement to be made to this movie. I would say it's sci-fi.
Nobody's ever attempted to redo it.
No, you can't make it again.
And it's wonderfly
done about the Crow, but they're doing it.
Yeah, but they'll do anything. It's like they've remade them, haven't they, with big ants?
Yeah,
they're
working on it.
It's going to be
CGI.
CGI. It's going to be so disappointing. It's always disappointing. It's like remaking Barbarella. They remade Barbarella. How can you remake Barbarella?
You can't.
I mean, you can't remake Barbarella.
You can't remake Jane Fonda.
You can't remake Jane Fonda.
Sacrilege.
Anyway, a great film, and really, really important. Its influence is huge. This next one, we've got to talk about the B movies. A lot of these people call them B movies, but actually they're a fairly big budget. Forbidden Planet is a big budget film. This is a much lower budget film. I like Earth vs. the Flying Saucers. I think it's a good film. And what people forget is that Ray Harryhausen
he animated the saucers, and it's a direct inspiration for Invaders from Mars from Tim Burton.
Yeah,
Tim Burton watched that film as a kid on the Saturday morning movies, and he thought, I've got to remake that. And he came with his bubblegum cards, obviously. He remade it as kind of Invaders from Mars. But if you look at those flying saucers, they don't look like hubcaps wobbling on a string. They actually look as if they're gliding and flying.
Yeah,
so very early on, he was learning how to, in terms of blotting out the wires and stuff like that. The way he painted the wires, the way he lit the whole scene. If you didn't have that, if you didn't have this movie, you wouldn't have had Thunderbirds, you wouldn't have had Jerry Anderson.
No.
Because a lot of the technology that Ray Harryhausen came up was exactly what they did.
And at that time, Harryhausen still wasn't a big name yet. No. Not quite.
That was his kind of breakthrough movie in the sense for his own career, even though he'd worked with some of the greats.
And he did it, I mean, they did it on a budget, really. And the special effects are great. The Alien's very good. The Alien's actually been done as a model several times.
When I think, is it the Washington Monument gets smashed, and I think he animated it falling apart stone by stone by stone, so it looks like it's crumbling, and a lot of it does, but he's actually animated by building the actual model as it was built, and then basically knocking chunks out of it and taking slow photographs. So when those buildings collapse, it looks a very realistic collapse, because essentially it is actually the building in miniature collapsing properly.
Very, very well done. Great film, good fun. Yeah. The next one, again, The Incredible Shrinking Man is just one of the most important films of the era, really. Yeah. That's the one of the iconic pictures from it, with the house spider. it's got the nuclear thing in it again. It's a bit different,
He gets
this one.
covered in dust when he's sunbathing, doesn't he?
They're out on a boat.
Yeah.
And this little shiny mist, and the shiny mist, he starts noticing that it's a bit smaller, and he gradually gets... Well, he gradually gets microscopic.
It's extremely well filmed, isn't it?
They spent a lot of money on the props. They spent so much money on the big props, the cotton reel, even the things like the safety pin and the pin.
Yeah, the full size
everything about it. That actually those things we reused in loads
Land
of
the Giants.
Land of the Giants.
Well, you can't mention this film without saying Land of the Giants, because I think it's Irwin Allen, Land of the Giants.
Yeah,
Is it Irwin Allen?
What was the name of the spaceship?
Spindrift.
Oh, wow.
Was that Spindrift?
Oh,
Was it
Spindrift,
It was Spindrift. Oh, right. Oh,
Well, my
anyway,
and
written by, I've got to mention, written by Richard Matheson. So the script, the original story is Richard Matheson.
I Am Legend.
And so many other things. He's a wonderful writer. And and even the screenplay itself has got Richard Matheson on it. So
because we forget that a lot of the household names of science fiction and stuff are actually the things that we take for granted now in books, but a lot of them had early careers where they were doing scripts and stuff like that, weren't they?
And it had an unusual ending, a sort of downbeat ending that people didn't expect at the time.
Yeah, he just kept going subatomically smaller. And then if you look at Ant-Man and the second Ant-Man movie, they talk about this quantum universe. Somewhere in Ant-Man's quantum universe is this little chap that shrank.
That's from the DVD cover. I mean, it's still, it's still available. It's such a big film. It's still available on Blu-ray or whatever you want. I've not seen any models based on it.
No.
And why not? You've got every opportunity.
I've seen scratch-built stuff. Using the AMT tarantula and stuff like that, and the Tamiya figures which have been converted. But it would make it the cotton reel, the massive pin, and the tarantula. Absolutely. If it was poised in an action pose, would make a lovely resin kit, wouldn't it?
And I've also thought about the cat. I mean, his pet cat becomes a villain because he ends up in a doll's house, and the cat actually tries to kill him. Great stuff. Great film. A really important film. The next one, well, what can you say about The Fly?
We've got lots of Fly.
I think Bill, Dave, sorry, Bill as well, I suppose.
That's a geometric.
All I could get hold of was that.
Yeah.
So I had to make this.
Pretty sure that's geometric.
Nice little scratch built base there.
But it's such a lovely model. Yeah. It really is.
Pretty sure that's a geometric one.
And that sort of reflects how important the film was because there's so many of them. This is the
original Fly, not the
this is the Vincent Price movie, isn't it? This is the Vincent Price movie, which spawned a couple of sequels. This one was it Return of the Fly?
Yeah,
Revenge of the Fly,
Curse of the Fly,
Curse of the Fly, and
this one's a Jeff Yeager piece. It's slightly over 1/6, so it's slightly larger than 1/6. This has been remastered and it's now available through ourselves.
And it's a lovely kit. I mean,
solid resin.
David Hedison is the figure there.
Was that Voice to the Bottom of the Sea?
Yeah, Voice to the Bottom of the Sea. The captain, wasn't he, rather than the admiral? Yeah.
Richard Basehart was the admiral.
And of course, The Fly is the ending of The Fly, the spider's web. Yeah. Vincent Price, for a change, not hamming it up.
I have to say that ending bit really freaked me out as a kid. I mean, a lot of films.
The little tiny.
It's the Fly in the spoiler alert.
Yep, spoiler alert, guys.
The Fly's body trapped in the web with the human head on it, and it's going, "Help me!"
And the spider
comes towards him. I think
really
did he put his boot on? Did he squash it in the end?
Yes,
he does. Don't you do the reverse in the remake? Do you do like a reverse in the remake, don't they? Or do you do a similar sort of thing at the end?
I can't remember the end.
I can't remember. It's Jeff Goldblum in it as the Fly.
I think they do something similar right at the end.
John Carpenter. Yeah. I mean, the Jeff Goldblum film, it's a great film.
I loved that one.
Very, very disturbing.
Very disturbing. It's body horror, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very Japanese in the sense that when his fingernails and stuff come off and he starts to change to this brundle fly, isn't it? And it's really gruesome. Whereas the original movie, to me, is a classy drawing, what I call a drawing room horror.
Yeah.
Lots of people going, I say, drinking a glass of wine and then discussing the future, and then something grim is going on in the background. And I think the understated nature of it, and the fact that the actual horror when she sees the fly, the head on the human body, the look on her face is a true horror, isn't it? I mean,
she's really good at it.
Yeah, you would imagine that perhaps they'd not shown the actress the makeup, and the makeup is faultless, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a beautiful piece of work.
And the influence obviously on the Fly and then the remakes and so on. But even Terminator has got a little bit of the Fly in there. because the way in which she tries to kill the Terminator with the press,
is exactly the same
idea. So it's a great film. If you've never seen it, watch it. The next one is one of my personal favourites. It's not highly rated, but I think it's a great movie. And I think there's fantastic opportunity for models. I believe there has been this one.
That one, I think Danny Scirocco at Dimensional Designs has done that
San Francisco there.
I'm pretty sure.
And this one is how she briefly sees it. I mean,
is that in morphing into the human front?
She actually sees it.
So it's a bit American Werewolf in London, mid change.
And the thing about the film is, it's a reflection of the paranoia of the period. Yeah. They're basically, it's an alien, it's bad, it's taken over.
Yeah.
And it does that really well. But actually, it's for me why it's such a better film than others like it is that actually she begins to recognise that this alien actually has some sort of humanity in him.
Yeah.
And he definitely begins to recognise that humans might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite unusual.
From a 1950s American perspective, it was basically I married a communist sympathiser, wasn't it? And basically the communist sympathiser comes round to thinking maybe capitalism isn't a bad idea, and the lady who's a capitalist is going, maybe communism isn't a bad idea either. Maybe if we met ourselves in the middle and we were a supportive society that helped everybody for whatever they needed, but at the same time generated enough capital for us all to remain wealthy.
Yeah. Wasn't it?
That is the message of that movie.
This was a political podcast by Bill's party.
No, it's middle of the road party.
Well, I know, I'm trying to think actually. There were a couple of the writers of these periods of film who were blacklisted.
Blacklisted for communist sympathies.
And couldn't work again or worked under alternative names.
For me, this is a happy version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes.
Which is a similar sort of thing. Loved ones being taken over by an outside force and becoming different and replaced, basically. The pods become them, a simulacrum of them.
So if you haven't watched the 1960s version of this episode, then we deal with that one there.
So, beautiful film.
Now, the next one has to be there. I mean, actually, what can you say about the worst film ever made? It's Plan 9 from Outer Space. 1959, so right at the end of the year.
It's not the worst film ever made as far as I'm concerned.
Rogue One, worst film ever.
Well, why is it not the worst film that's ever made? Well, first of all, it's not the worst film that's ever made because you can actually watch it. It's not unwatchable.
No, it's not.
It's watchable as like a bit of a freak show, bit of an accident. It's like watching an accident, but at the same time, you've got to admire that sort of opium dream kind of feverishness that powers the whole thing, and the actors in it are iconic actors. You've got Vampira, who's like wow. You've got what's his name? Tor Johnson, who's
like a
wrestler.
Whoops, just knocked the mic there.
And you've got a little bit of a guest appearance from
Bela
Lugosi,
who's actually, a lot of people think he was on set and he wasn't. I mean, basically, but I was going to say Tim Burton then.
No, but
basically Ed Wood,
the director,
had already done something with Lugosi, and Lugosi died. Yeah. So he just cut in these bits that make no sense.
From a romantic Universal Monsters point of view, if you isolate the scenes where Lugosi is actually on the screen and you divorce it from the rest of the movie and you watch it, it's heartbreaking, and you really get a feeling of Lugosi, he's a horror genius. In his later years, drug addled, because he had a prescription drug sort of addiction. If you watch this, the beauty and the romance of that is just absolutely beautiful. I have to say it's like the end of a really sad movie when you watch him.
Lugosi also always felt that he appreciated the income, but he always felt that his talent was wasted. The guy spoke 5 languages.
Yeah, I mean, this guy...
He was a really, really bright player.
He fought in the First World War. He was a serious, major stage actor in his own... It's Hungary, wasn't it? Was it Hungary? He's Hungarian. He was a major stage actor. In fact, he was the Hungarian version of a stage idol.
Hungarian Burt Reynolds.
In fact, he was a Hungarian. If we're being serious, it's a Hungarian version of Rudolph Valentino. And he was considered an extremely handsome guy, so he got typecast, and he always felt that Dracula didn't do him justice. Because he'd come from a place a European sort of filmmaking tradition where it was still very expressionist, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he kind of was dropped into this kind of American naturalism that took place, and he's still being this wonderful sort of Hungarian version of a Shakespearean actor, which looks like he's completely overacting, whereas the rest of the people around him are just being dead natural. So he always kind of stands out from that. But remember, he's portraying a character that's 1,000 years old, and he's playing a 1,000-year-old vampire that's seen it, done it, and ate it all. And there he is amongst all these pseudo English people in a ruined abbey. So I think.
His Children of the Night speech is actually the best version of that speech in any Dracula film. It's great. Movie. Right, to finish, we should mention this. This is actually 1960, and this is, but was filmed in 59, so I'm cheating.
Yeah.
Absolutely iconic film. I forgot to say about Plan 9, why I put it in here. I want some decent kits.
There was the Plan 9. There were 2 really, really good kits. Resin from the Grave did them back in the early days of the hobbies, and the picture you put up earlier with the victory screen grabs. Sadly, they're no longer with us, so them kits are probably lost. It's a real shame. There is actually a sculpture in the offing of Vampira, of a guy that's trying to sell me the sculpture, and there's also a Vampira lovely work of art bust that I'm in. Well,
that's what I was. I mean, for me, that's the one I'd want to buy. He's great. He'd be good as well.
So there is hopeful that we'll get that somewhere down the line. It's just a case of time and effort.
Let's look at what Plan 9 before we go on to the Time Machine. Look. No Vampira, no Elvira. No Vampira, no Addams Family.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that film.
No Tor Johnson, no Telly Savalas.
No, but look at him and look at the original Night of the Living Dead zombies.
Yeah,
so similar.
Yeah. Odd Jobbing.
I mean, both of those have made great kits, a pair of kits brought out. I'd buy them like a shot. Now, why I mentioned that is the Time Machine.
Yeah.
There have been loads of models of the Time Machine.
Yeah.
But they are so damned expensive.
Yeah, Morlock, there's a lot for Morlock. There's a lot of Morlock kit, there's a lot of Morlock stuff out there. Again, as I keep saying to people, the fanatical side of these old sci-fi movies seems to come from the other side of the water. We don't seem to embrace it as much over here for some reason.
Yeah, and you speak to anybody and ask them to name any film from this era, they'll go The Time Machine, because it's just such a great film to watch. It's great fun. The vision of it, the bit with the dresser in the window, changing its clothes. Yeah.
There's animation in there. There's the art production on that film is just wonderful. Amazing, isn't it?
And the Time Machine itself is beautiful.
It's a beautiful piece of
work, if you want to get one of those, you're going to have to pay for a certain company in America, which would cost you 200 quid. And
who does that?
I don't know, but it's
Monsters in Motion. I don't know who they are.
There's loads of different bits, there's brass bits and everything in there, isn't there?
There is. It's a
what we need machine. What we need ideally is a cheap injection molded version of the Time Machine.
And we need it, it needs to have the detail in it. But you've got the Morlocks. Again, there are plenty out there, but there's none available.
We don't see them over here. We don't see much over here. Unfortunately, that's the way it's gone. Unfortunately, it seems to be our cousins over the water seem to. I
think you're leading a revival there, David. So I think there is room for the Time Machine.
What I like about the Time Machine as well is it's obviously set in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah, is it?
I think he's Scottish, isn't he?
Right.
I think it's supposed to kind of be.
Oh, that's right.
It's kind of that weird kind of Hollywood of England, Scotland that envisions in America.
Yes.
So technically, the whole film takes place in a very Americanized England.
Yeah.
That shows a future of Britain through the eyes of the Time Machine and shows the changes. It looks like a weird kind of like Disney-fied Edinburgh.
Yeah, I think
if you go into the
sidekick, his friend has got a Scottish
brogue, hasn't it? Yeah, and I think that's the idea.
So you reckon that had got legs?
Lots and lots of legs.
So basically, really. I'll scrap the Mr. Ben kit we had planned. And go
no! the dinosaur runway. The dinosaur version of Mr. Ben. When he gets run down by them dinosaurs, you're not going to scrap
that. Right, guys, in the comments below, Mr. Ben or Time Machine.
Or Time Machine.
Time Machine. Okay.
Right, well, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll get this one on the airways. Yeah. It's been very difficult.
Don't hold your breath.
This is the third go at doing it. So
fourth if you include the interruption.
Four. I never could count. You can tell these are teachers, can't you? Okay, guys, thank you. Please put the... Smash a like.
Yeah, smash a like. Have a fantastic day.
And subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, and subscribe to the channel.
Thanks for all the kind words, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.